Heat mats, halogen bulbs and ceramic bulbs. 3 ways to heat your leopard gecko. Each one has its pros and cons. In this video we're going to be covering all 3 to see which is best for you. I'm David, this is Lana, welcome to DJL Exotics. So heating is one of the biggest controversial topics within leopard gecko keeping. There are opinions from everyone and everyone has their own take on it. However, that doesn't mean that anyone is right or anyone is wrong. It is very dependent on your situation and there are lots of different options for you. But let's start with the basic, the heat mat. Now the heat mat is a simple device. It goes at the bottom of your enclosure if you're using the vivarium, or underneath if you're using a really useful box setup, and you put the thermostat probe on top of that and it heats the bottom of the enclosure. It creates the belly heat that the leopard gecko uses. There is a study that clearly suggested that the leopard gecko absorbs all its heat through the stomach, and if you actually feel the stomach area of your leopard gecko against the upper parts of the leopard gecko, you can feel the difference. The underside is much softer for absorption of heat, whereas the top part is much harder and would actually resist the heat more. The other benefits of the heat mats is that they are cheap and affordable. They don't require expensive regulation equipment. They just need a simple thermostat, which you can get for £20. And they have been used by breeders for a long time with success. Therefore, they are a great option. However, there are some downsides. Number one, if your heat mat does break, it can be a pain to get them out. You have to take everything apart on the inside of the enclosure, pop out the vent, take the plug out through that and back out, and then you have to put a new heat mat in, which is like the reverse of that. So it can take some time. It's not an easy switch around compared to some of the other options on this list. The other problem is that it doesn't do a great job of heating the ambient temperature inside the enclosure. It only really does the surface area. Therefore the gecko won't have that complete thermal gradient all the way up the top and all the way down. So if your gecko likes to climb, it could get colder as it gets higher up into the enclosure, but there are ways around this. And remember that leopard geckos will seek out the heat when they need it, not. Another problem that people find with heat mats is that they find it difficult to know what size heat mat to put inside their enclosure. The simple rule of this is that the heat mat should cover about 1/3 of the enclosure floor surface. So while heat mats do have a claim to be everything that you need for the temperature, it doesn't mean that it's always the best option, and there are other options for heating the enclosure of your leopard gecko. I'm going to start with the halogen light on this one. Now the halogen light is a light source that emits strong UVA or the heat, and they can also emit UVB, allowing for synthesizing of the D3 supplement that these guys need. It sounds really good on paper. It certainly gives an ambient temperature that allows for thermoregulation by providing the correct thermo gradient between a hot side and a cold side. It certainly makes the enclosure look brighter because that bright light, it makes it look really nice inside the enclosure. And it is also very good at encouraging basking behaviour. However, there are a few downsides to this. Number one, these guys are crepuscular, so they're not going to be very much interested in bright light. They're not like a bearded dragon or a bird skink, which are diurnal and like to be out in the sun. These guys are more dawn and dusk, which means that they might not make too much of the light during the day. The other problem is that you actually have to turn that halogen light off at night, which means that you've got no heating for the leopard gecko during the long hours of the night. And this is the time when leopard geckos are most likely to be digesting their food, so you've got no heat for them to digest it. The other problem is that the expensive dimmerstat that comes with it is nearly twice or sometimes even 3 times the price of the basic thermostat that you require for the heat mat. This is because the heat mat can be on a very simple on-off thermostat, but for a halogen light you need a dimmerstat, otherwise you could blow the bulb. The bulbs are also rather expensive, but they are easier to replace. The other one that is really a concern is that halogen bulbs can actually cause burns on your leopard gecko. Now this can be caused if there's too much UVB coming from it. These guys cannot take 10 strength UVB, it actually cracks their skin. The other problem is if the leopard gecko comes in contact with the halogen bulb, it is too hot and it can cause burns on them, which will require a visit to the vet. Now this can be solved with a cage around the bulb, but even then that cage can get too hot, and if the leopard gecko actually grips hold of it and then can't get loose, you can actually end with the gecko getting seriously hurt by that. So while halogen bulbs are often seen as a more natural option for the leopard gecko, there are some serious downsides which can often put people off. And there's been more than one occasion where I've actually heard of people who've used halogen bulbs and the gecko won't eat because it doesn't have that heat at night. So let's have a look at the next option, which is the ceramic bulb. The ceramic bulb is a bit like the halogen bulb, but it doesn't do visible light, so it doesn't do the UVB, but it does give off that heat that allows it to heat the environment. So it does allow for that ambient temperature to rise and for that thermogradient to be throughout the enclosure, so you've got one hot end and you've got one cooler end. Likewise, as you do have with the halogen, you will need to put some kind of guard around the bulb, because again these guys can get burnt if they come in contact with a ceramic bulb. Ceramic bulbs tend to also be a little bit more on the cheaper side, but you will still need that dimmer stat. But they are advantageous in that you can actually keep them on all the time. So your gecko can have the heat throughout the day and night because it doesn't emit any light, so it's not going to break that day-night cycle that they require. However, one of the bigger disadvantages, and this goes for the halogen as well as the ceramic, is that they don't provide belly heat. So it doesn't allow for the gecko to sit on something hot for it to absorb the heat directly from the surface. Now this can be solved by putting slate inside the enclosure directly underneath your heat source that will soak up the heat and release it slowly. So each option has advantages and disadvantages, and it's up to you to decide which heating source you want to use. I truly recommend to have the heat mat because it does provide that belly heat, but you can then supplement that with a ceramic bulb if you would like. The one source, and this is the most important thing, the one source of heat that you must not use is a heat rock. Now these are bits of decoration that sit inside of the enclosure, and they emit heat. It's a bit like having a radiator in there. The problem with heat rocks is, and it's a very commonly known issue, is that there is no way to regulate the temperature and they often get too hot, which can cause burns. Now these things sit inside the enclosure, which the gecko can easily just walk over, and therefore the burns can be quite quick. But at the end of the day, it isn't about the heat source that you choose, it's about providing the right temperature for your leopard gecko. You might find that a heat mat can't provide the heat that you need because of the environment that you're living in, or you might find that you can't provide the heat through a halogen bulb because it's too hard to get those bulbs. Ensuring your gecko has the right temperature ensures a healthy gecko that will eat, bask and grow properly. Thank you very much for watching. If you've liked this episode, please remember to like, share and comment on it, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much, and bye for now.